Yes, don't worry. Oh, hello. Welcome. So, what's the title of this session? All right, it's about tourism. Now, before we begin, I said to the panelists, before we begin, we have His Excellency, the Minister from Saudi Arabia, everybody's excellencies except me. We have His Excellency, the Prime Minister of Albania. Oh, no, you're not, are you? Xavier from Avolta, Jane from TRIP, and the Commissioner, because I'm not going to try to attack your name.
No, you should. It's easy.
Go on.
Zizi. Easy enough.
Commissioner.
You cut it.
There's one thing I said to the panelists just before we came on. I was not going to allow this panel to descend into a general masturbatory discussion about how great tourism is. Everybody on this panel knows the statistics. 10% of the world's population, 12% in some cases, GDP of this. You've got 10 million visitors. You've got this visitors, that. That is not what we're about. That just takes us into an ever-descending cycle of discussion and self-congratulatory nonsense. Instead, it's the challenges.
It's very difficult to ask a banker not to use numbers.
You can use numbers. Of course you can use numbers. In fact, well, since you put your head above the parapet, let's start with you.
Richard, can you elaborate what is a general masturbation?
I'll draw you a diagram after the panel, Prime Minister.
I never heard the notion of general masturbatory discussion.
Well, I guarantee you we are the only panel that started with those words.
Absolutely.
So if nothing else, we have broken some ground here at Davos. All right, protocol then. We'll start with you, Prime Minister. I look at your numbers are going up. Tourism is an important part of the growth of your country. How do you manage that? Yes, in a sustainable way. How do you manage that?
Listen, before all this happened, we had the challenge to make it happen. Now that this is happening, we have the challenge to keep the balance and try to not lose what we have to preserve by building what we need. So it's a very big challenge because Albania has incredible beauties and there's incredible diversity. And in the meantime, we need to have more investments. So how you balance that? This is the big problem. And we are trying to do our best by, on one hand, increasing the amount of protected areas and creating more tools to transform what is protected in a source of development, and on the other hand, by engaging a lot of great international architects to help us to have a different quality of projects than we have seen in the region around us.
And when we take, for example, those countries that are building new or at least less developed industries in tourism, if we look at your country, Minister, I mean, the size and scale, I've been, as you know, many times, is quite extraordinary. But managing that growth is what the challenge is, isn't it? Because anybody, well, I say anybody, you know what I mean, anybody can build. And you're going to have the numbers, and your numbers are going to go through the roof. How do you manage it?
First of all, I want to congratulate everyone because we are back to pre-pandemic levels. You know, the UN Tourism just published their report yesterday, and I'm happy to say that. Congratulations. Second, the World Economic published their report 2 days ago, and they're expecting the industry to grow by 7% every year, and this is a very strong growth. We came late to the industry. We opened our borders back in 2019. with Vision 2030, we decided to unlock all other sectors, including travel and tourism, and we decided to take it from, allow me to use some numbers, 3% of the GDP to 10% of the GDP by 2030. We are at 5% end of last year. We are building destinations, building airports, including King Salman, big airport with a 120 million capacity, new airlines like Riyadh Airlines, and looking into the experience or the journey end to end from fly, land, mobility. We are doubling our key rooms from 400,000 key rooms to 800,000 key rooms in 10 years. We are creating an experience. Travel today is experience, you know, retail, buy, dine, and play. And therefore, we're looking into all this. But it is very challenging.
But how do you do it so that you don't
Governance.
grow too fast?
Governance. We have entities, we have centers, we have commissions, and everybody is taking care of what they do, and they coordinate with each other in the Economical Council where all the ministers sits.
Is there a recognition within that sometimes you cannot do that which you would wish to do because it is too much, too far, too fast?
Oh, definitely. We are making mistakes, but we are learning fast, and we are adapting, and we are improving. And this is, we do it every day. And therefore, it is very challenging. However, we are seeing the numbers. We received 30 million international arrivals last year, and this is a record ever for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And we are heading to 70 million by 2030, which will put Saudi Arabia in the top seven countries.
Commissioner,
Yeah.
in Europe, there is a backlash. Venice, Spain, Mallorca, numerous countries now are experiencing a backlash of residents against tourism, of environmentalists against tourism. I have not yet seen a decent policy that addresses that.
That's true. And this is why we're here. And what we are going to try to build within the next couple of years, starting with our EU strategy on tourism, which will come this year. We are preparing it, and it's going to be the first one. We are going to address these issues, trying to make tourism sustainable in Europe. Because today you should know, Richard, that the European...
What do you mean by sustainable?
Sustainable, I mean exactly what you said earlier, meaning a tourism model that will respect the societies, the destinations, the environment, the heritage, and at the same time, it will not stop the industry from developing. Let me give you an example. The European Union today is a superpower in tourism. We are the #1 destination of the world. 3 billion nights in 2024 in the European Union. 50% increase in these 15 years that we've come through. So you understand that there are issues that have risen and that we need to tackle. And that's why we are preparing an EU strategy, as I told you, which will tackle these issues and give solutions by involving, of course, not only the member states, but regional and local authorities who have a very important role, by creating destination management organizations, because today regions mostly care about promoting their destinations instead of managing the flows. And at the same time, I will try to showcase areas and to present areas in Europe that are today undervalued touristically, even though they shouldn't. We have amazing places in the continent that can receive tourists 365 days a year.
I can see a lot
And
of
are less known.
I can see a lot of reports coming out. I can see a lot of consultations at various directorates and commissions. But at some point, you have to actually have a policy.
Exactly.
And that policy has... A good example is in Rome, where the Trevi Fountain reopened.
Yeah.
And they've now gone to a ticketing system at certain times of the day. Now, whether that's good or bad, I don't know. But if you take the major destinations in Europe, which is, as you say, the superpower of tourism, don't you believe we need a more radical solution?
We do, and that's why I'm here. As I told you, it's the first ever time that the European Union has specifically a commissioner for tourism. And so we are now working on this strategy. I will involve all the stakeholders. You know, you cannot have a strategy without involving member states, without involving all the stakeholders of the private sector, to see how we can use tools like, for example, the tourism database, which can help us with AI tools to see the flows of tourism, and how we can legislate, for example, for short-term rentals, issues that today can create problems in some destinations, but are beneficial to others.
I know this is not, and last question to you, and then I'll come to our other guests, and I know this isn't your fault, if you will. Don't you think it is a disgrace that the EU has not had a tourism dedicated commissioner before now?
It's not a disgrace because tourism was under another commissioner in the past, of course. It existed as a unit within the Commission. But now I think it's a very important decision of President von der Leyen to create a portfolio of tourism which showcases the need to move to a sustainable model and to invest in this very heavy industry that creates 20 million jobs and affects 3 million small and medium enterprises in Europe.
Jane, you get the overview, don't you?
That's right.
But
please.
allow me, can I comment on the over-tourism? There is nothing called over-tourism. There is
Unbalanced tourism.
there is imbalance or mismanagement of traffic.
Exactly.
You know, why we put all our assets in one city? Why we have everything in Paris? Look at Italy example or Saudi Arabia example. We have the assets fragmented and distributed around the country. If you have everything in one city like Paris, 90% of the 100 billion visit France stay in Paris only.
There are historical reasons
Look
for
at this. This is a good example. Why Switzerland does not have the Davos in Geneva. They put it in Davos, this conference. And therefore, they developed the rural areas, they developed the smaller cities, and they created economy for the smaller cities.
But you know, Jane, where do people want to go in Thailand? Where do they want to go? Where do they want to go in France?
Yeah, in the old days, because of the language barriers, people like to go to the first-tier cities. But now the young generation much prefer to travel on their own. So what we did is create a possibility to customize their tour so that they can visit long-tail cities and attractions.
You sell everywhere, don't you?
73 countries.
73 countries. When you look at the traffic flows and the areas, what do you see as being the biggest challenge?
Look, I think, yes, tourism is a great industry, but for that you need infrastructure. And one of the key infrastructures is airports. And that costs money. Somebody needs to pay for that. And part of that is the commercial income you generate at the airports. That's what we do, shops and restaurants at airports. But for that, you need to sell to the passengers. Interestingly enough, the number of passengers buying something at airports is only 20%. 20%. That means they don't find what they want. So the opportunity is huge to generate money for everybody that is in the ecosystem.
Can you just pause for 1 second? I want to ask our guests here, because I think I traveled perhaps as much, if not more than most. And I am just staggered at every international airport at how many Chanel, Dior, Hermes shop. So my question to the audience is, has anybody ever bought anything from a Chanel, Hermes, Dior, you know, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 handbag while they were just transferring at an airport?
Yeah.
You have?
We do. We do. I talked to the executives at the airport. Trip.com customers' buying power is 2 to 3 times as the average.
You're not selling the right things.
Yeah.
We have 520 million customers last year. 500 million.
Right. I buy Toblerone, by the way.
Great product. Look, the question is to adapt to what people demand.
Right.
And sometimes what has happened is you go on the old way. You just sell the same brands on the same places. Localization, sense of place, We just won some business in Saudi Arabia, and it's going to be a combination because we also do food of global food and local tradition and local food. You need you sell more. That's important.
This is so significant.
Sense of place is good.
You know,
the last thing I want to do
go on.
is spend time in airport. Airport should be built to transform people, to transfer people. I don't want to spend time in airport. I wish to see a runway and just face recognition and my bag with a chip to be delivered to my home or my hotel. I don't want. They created the shop because there is a delay and they want you to stay more in the airport. I don't want to stay more in the airport. I want to stay in the city. I want to enjoy the mountains. I want to go to.
It's a revenue source.
I think it is created to solve another problem.
That's right.
Which is time, you know. Why do I need to spend time in the airport? Seriously. And this is how we are thinking in Saudi Arabia, and this is the way we look at the future airport. Future airport, you must spend less time in airport. If you ask any traveler, I traveled to 122 countries. I don't want to spend
If I can
time
build on that.
Hang on. He's just destroyed your business.
No, absolutely not. What he makes is a complementary comment to my business. What we want is people to go to the airport because they will enjoy the experience at the airport, not because they have to. So it's completely complementary. Actually, they will have more time to enjoy themselves on entertainment, on shopping, on gastronomy, and maybe experience.
I agree with you wholly on this question of gastronomy. And one of the airports I use more than anything, because I'm based in the States, is Newark. Newark has about 15 restaurants. They're all owned by OTG, which I'm sure is a fine company, but they're all basically the same thing. There is no local colour, flavour, enjoyment. And I think that is significant, isn't it?
I don't know about the flavors, but I can tell you that
well, when I landed at an airport,
have in Albania the fastest growing airport in Europe. In the last 2 or 3 years, and we have overcome Belgrade, which was the famous and the most important regional airport. And just to give you a little background, we were North Korea of Europe once upon a time.
I visited it when it was that in the old days.
But then you were working for some agencies that are not really benign to democratic world, because nobody could enter in Albania. Or you had some Marxist affiliations.
England were playing Albania, and so they had to let us in. So every journalist that suddenly became a die-hard England fan.
I'm not sure, Richard, but who doesn't have something to hide at the end? So,
good try, Prime Minister.
We had an airport at that time that was practically desert, because to come to Albania you had to be Marxist-Leninist. And I'm not kidding. And we had only average 5,000 tourists per year. Last year we closed with nearly 12 million in a country of 2.5 million residents, and our airports reached 10 million passengers out and in. So airports are absolutely very important. We are opening now a new one in Vlora, which is more in the south. And yes, I'm not sure that people don't like to also spend time in the airport, because His Excellency is used to private planes, so
I was wondering when somebody was going to throw that at you.
But when people have to transit, they have to wait.
Right.
And especially when you are in the fucked up European soil, where mostly of the airlines are now having a lot of delays, because since pandemic they are not yet recovering in terms of having enough workforce, and the airports are also a very big problem, so people have to spend a lot of time in the airports. So I think your business is safe for...
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I think,
hopefully in Albania soon.
I think a good combination is Singapore. They built the most beautiful jewel at the airport. You don't feel you are in the airport. You can enjoy the beautiful botanic garden.
I have to say,
excellent.
I normally don't take sides, but I would say that
Singapore.
Changi is probably the leader. Yeah, I know you'll get there with your new airport, sir. You will get.
And of course, we should always keep in mind, Richard, that it's not the only mode of travel. We have cars, we have trains, we have ships, and especially trains is something that we are very interested in the European Union.
How far do you want to legislate on that?
A lot, and I'm planning to bring a legislation very early in 25, allowing digital single ticketing, meaning for trains and other modes of transport, meaning that the way today we can book and buy a ticket for the airplane, different companies going different places, we will be able to do that with trains as well, and we will be able to do that through different modes of transport, including airplane and train. And at the same time, we will renew the passenger rights in order for them to be covered and feel safe.
So you've thrown a lot in there. Let me ask you, number one, will you promote further legislation, as indeed with France has done, that where there is a viable rail alternative within a certain number of hours, you will essentially make it forbid, in a sense, the air option?
No, we will not forbid, no. But we will give viable options and solid options to a traveler to use other modes of transport. How do we do that? By giving them the chance, for example, to have direct connections with high-speed train, which we are also working on. So you see the European Union, and this is answering one of your questions earlier, is really having an impact on tourism all these years through transport as well. Another impact, you know, the European Union had in tourism, and we have to remember that, because we came out of a COVID pandemic where we almost saw tourism destroyed. You know how we managed to come back through that and to recover? Because the European Union implemented the digital certificate for COVID and travel, which, by the way, was a proposal of the Greek Prime Minister Mitsotakis, which the European Union brought. And through this, we managed again to open our borders and have travel again, and tourism managed to get safe.
You're overselling this, with respect. I covered it. You're overselling the way it was. You're overselling the way it was introduced and the way it was put into operation. I agree it was a good idea.
But this allowed us to travel back in the COVID times. You should not forget that, otherwise we wouldn't
So why
be
has it taken? So why has it taken so long to get the ETA up and running?
These are issues that, you know, and of course,
everything takes long in EU.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
and this is something, by the way, which we need to make to give solution to make quicker decision maker.
The fascination that I have with both Saudi and Albania, in a sense, is that you have the opportunity. Indeed, one arguably would say the obligation not to repeat the mistakes of the mature markets. You know, Paris has got the Eiffel Tower, you can't help it if it's also got the Louvre, and that's why people want to go there. But you, from the get-go, have the opportunity to have a diverse, well, start with you, Minister, a diversified, everything from Alula to the south, to the different places to visit, along with the religious tourism, which is such a huge number.
Yeah. Let me talk about religious. As a religious, we're blessed by having the two holy cities, but let's talk about the leisure tourists. People travel for leisure, for example. If you ask Jane, people travel for history and heritage. Others travel for sun and sea beach to enjoy the beaches, and some others travel for sport. That's why we are expanding sport in Saudi Arabia, and culture, etc. And therefore, we looked at why people travel, and then when they travel, what do they need, and what they are looking for. to enjoy. And the new generation needs is completely changed than the previous or the older generations. And therefore, we came late. We understand why people travel. We make travel easy through facilitating the access through the visa, different type of visas. 5 minutes, you can get a visa to visit Saudi Arabia. Airlines, connectivity. I visited the Pacific, Richard. Beautiful islands, but it is not connected. You can't travel there. And therefore, connectivity, connecting the destination is extremely important. And then when you go to the destination, you find what you are looking for.
Yeah.
I would add something that I think it's important in that, yes, we have some advantages in having to grow from behind, let's say, because others have done a lot of mistakes. But it's not in the human nature to learn from mistake of the others. You know, how many times you are told marriage is not a good idea and still you marry. So, for example, so Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries are an incredible place to learn. And once you learn how they are doing it, you discover that beyond all the myths and beyond all the stereotypes, they are investing incredibly in knowledge, and they are investing incredibly in a top education and in top skills. So this is what we are trying also to do in a different way. So I said before, we are engaging incredible architects from all over the world that are very happy to work with us, and we are giving life to products of architecture that you don't find in our region. So everyone has to find an angle. And when it comes to comparing it with Europe, I think Europe is blessed because, look at Greece, look at Italy, look at France, look everywhere, it's blessed by a past that has been glorious. The problem of Europe today is to make it mind and stop over-regulating and start cutting red tapes and start making the continent much more flexible and much more free.
And this, by the way, what the Prime Minister said is exactly the target we have, reducing it by 30%, the red tape, within the next year. And we are already in the process of doing this.
Let's hang on.
Yes.
What's the problem?
Oh, where do we begin? Everybody's in favour of cutting regulation and bureaucracy until it means cutting a rule that would be, if you cut it, would adversely affect them. In other words, noise, pollution, traffic, things like that. No one's ever seen a rule they didn't like until it's something that they want.
Before we can bring customers to the beautiful continent of Europe, I'm hoping, Commissioner, I'm very excited to work with you. The visa application, if we can make it shorter and more efficient, we'll be able to bring more high-end customers.
What's the problem with it?
In some countries, Switzerland does a wonderful job. 1 week, you can get the visa application. If you pay for premium services, same-day services, Saudi Arabia,
why should you have to
within
pay
seconds.
for a premium service for a government to do that which they are charged to do properly in the first place?
Yeah, I think
Totally agree with
the
you.
progress has been made, but still the pent-up demand is still,
Hang on, I haven't finished with the Commissioner.
I-
One other thing, Commissioner. Let's just take the number of European countries which do not have digital biometric access at the border point for non-EU EEA. Now, if the UK, with all its inefficiencies, can manage to let the US, Australia, blah, 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 use biometric machines, why can't Germany?
Yeah.
Why can't Switzerland?
Please don't put UK as an example now, please, because it's the worst thing you can do. UK is not an example.
It is an example in terms of getting through the
UK is
border.
an example of how big mistake is to think that leaving Europe is a good idea.
No, we're not discussing Brexit. This is not a Brexit discussion. This is
I will answer directly to your question. By 2026, already most of the countries are ready to implement that. And by 2026, the rest of the countries will be ready. And throughout the European Union, we will have digitalization in our ports, in our entrance, everywhere, in airports.
Okay, but
which will make things faster and easier for the traveler.
I guess my point is, when Brexit came along, all right, you can have your say on that in a minute, but when Brexit came along, the discussion took place about allowing UK/EU, UK, US, blah, 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 to use a separate set of biometric machines. And the answer was the treaty doesn't allow it. The answer was you cannot have it under the treaty. Well, the UK said, fine, we'll put the machines in anyway. The US, which is always slow, but when, I always say about the United States, they're always late to the party, but when they get there, they do it better than anybody else. Global entry, biometric entry, all of these things, you have it. I went to Saudi Arabia, straight on, straight
in our airport is the same. You don't need to wait, you don't need to see anyone, you just have a machine, you put your passport there, you enter.
In many countries today within the EU, what's going to happen within 26 is that this is going to be horizontal for all EU member states. And this is good because it's going to save time and it's going to save money. And not just a penny, but a lot of money, Richard.
I was just going to say, Commissioner, and it's going to be for free because there is more time for passengers to be at the enjoyment of the airport, more revenue, so do it as soon as possible.
The other thing that always interests me is we talk about how we're going to manage this growth.
Yeah.
But I haven't yet heard post-pandemic, we missed the opportunity. The opportunity during the pandemic for a reasoned discussions on, you don't like over-tourism, what's the word you prefer?
Unbalanced.
Unbalanced tourism. Unbalanced tourism, but we didn't. We didn't put in place anything. So I was there when the first cruise ship arrived back in Dubrovnik. I was actually standing in the square in Prague when it reopened. I've done all...
This is the role of the DMOs, the destination management organizations that we are asking all regions and all destinations to implement. Again, Richard, it's very important. So far, all destinations were mostly interested in how they will promote their destination. It's not enough anymore. With unbalanced tourism, with what we've seen happening maybe 1 or 2 months in some places across Europe, what we need now is to have a destination management which will oversee the flows, make sure, as I said, using AI tools as well, we have the data for tourism, and make sure that for example, cruise ships, arrive at a destination in an orderly manner, not all together on the same day at the same time. Because what is important is that we need to take the added value of tourism and make sure that this added value arrives at every household, every citizen, in every destination.
You are so far,
problems.
And I agree fully with that, but you are so far from that destination. I was in Lisbon with the mayor, sitting there as this vast ship where people will just be disgorged, to be reboarded, spend maybe a few trinkets. But there's no obvious solution to any of this, is there?
This is, Richard, a big industry, a big business. Let's look at it as a business, and countries have to compete to make the accessibility easier and make the cost efficient. Today, you travel to countries or destinations or cities, and it is very expensive. And therefore...
This is the other side of the story, which is the story, in fact. So the costs. So it's very important to try and make it cost efficient and also cost worthy for the tourists, for the people, for the travelers, for everyone.
Is there a realization, though, that you may have to, as part of unbalanced tourism, wield the economic weapon, which nobody wants to do? In other words, charging people to go into the inner city or to go and see the famous things in Rome or whatever it is. No one wants to do it because that will give a premium to those who can afford it, which is not really the whole goal of tourism.
But I think we miss the technology as a tool to match the 2 points. I'm going to give you a very silly example. I'm from Barcelona, I live in Switzerland. Sagrada Familia. There used to be 3 hours queue to enter. They established a pre-booking. So
or the Gaudi or the
you have
well
a slot to get, and the queues now are 20 minutes. So technology can help, and this is a very silly example, AI. You can actually have the tourists, but you can manage them, helping them to decide. Tell people that they will have no waiting time at 8 a.m. Some tourists will wake up earlier to go there.
I wanted to jump on this, and we have a say in Albanian, you live more than me, because when someone is trying to say something, the other is saying it, it's proof you'll outlive me. So congratulations.
Right, that is great.
I will live long, by the way. But the point is exactly that. Güell Park, for example, in Barcelona, it's an amazing park that was practically overwhelmed by many people wanting to enter, a lot of queues and so on. With the digital solution and the booking, on one hand, you don't spend time in a queue. On the other hand, they manage exactly the quantity of people they want to get in. So it's.
But the DMO has
so you don't need to increase the
DMO then
cost.
has the advantage of you've lost the people, or you've restricted the people there. Now you have to shift the traffic flows to prevent it all going over there and disperse it to somewhere else.
Richard, that's exactly what I told you earlier. I'm not in favor of putting higher costs to prevent tourists. We need to support tourism. It's a heavy industry. But we need to see the flows. How do we see the flows? Through using technology and through managing in a better way the flows. And at the same time, which is something, that I will do in the next years, in the coming years, is that I will promote a lot of areas in Europe that have not been enough promoted and that are fantastic for visitors. And I'm closing with this, when it comes to cruise ships, I do not support that we need to stop cruising. Cruising is a very big part of tourism, and it's very important for local communities and their income. We need to make the flow work better. This is what DMOs are going to do, and this is why, in a European level, we are going to start discussing now with the stakeholders in order to give them guidelines on how could this be implemented on the ground.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see the new rules and regulation. I think another element we need to consider not only is on the space, but also on the timeline, because different countries have different holiday season. Chinese New Year is not the same as Europe holidays. We can bring in during the slow season to fill in the gaps. That will eliminate a peak season. Everyone goes to holiday seasons at Christmas.
One thing I want to just touch on before we finish, which is in a sense, is the trickiest issue.
Can I comment on the technology, please?
Yes, of course.
You know, we need to be very careful when we use technology in our industry. We need to digitalize the unnecessary. I want to buy through customs using the biometrics. I want to get my luggage to my hotel. I don't want to wait in the queues. But please, this is a people-to-people business. I don't want to see a robot serving me, or I don't want to have like a digital check-in in the hotel, etc. I want to interact with the people. You know, the best people you interact with are the black taxi driver in London. They tell you what's happening in London.
I guess what you're saying is, though, you want the choice.
Yeah.
Good. Can I just ask, though, really, this is the trickiest one. It is how much power and influence the tourism industry actually wields in government. And I'll give you an example. Now, you, Minister, you are one of the leaders, MBS's top ministers. You wield a huge amount of influence. I'm not being gratuitously pleasant, and I'm not flattering you unnecessarily. I know, I've been there. When you speak, he listens, and everybody else listens. But I also know 1,000,001 countries that where the tourism minister speaks, well, first of all, everyone says, who is the tourism minister? And secondly, when you tell them who they are, they still say, who is the tourism minister? And thirdly, they don't listen to them anyway, because that person has not been vested with influence, power and authority. So let me ask you, Commissioner, how much power and influence do you wield in the college?
As you know, in the college, we are 27 commissioners, including the president, who is also a commissioner, and we are all equal. And when we decide all together. This is why we are called commissioners, because we share our missions, co-missioners. So we all decide together in college. Despite my portfolio is transport and tourism, we will decide, for example, on foreign affairs all together. And our opinion has the same value with the respective commission.
They are 27 doctors taking care of one patient.
Exactly. But Richard, since we are talking about patients, I will tell you that today there are many challenges that we need to take care of in tourism. For example, climate change.
Oh, no.
Wait.
No.
Jobs shortages that are huge.
No.
Skills gaps.
No.
These are issues that we will have to confront.
The EU has and I'm going to take my moderator's hat on and I'm going to put my correspondent's hat on. The EU knows one simple way to reduce aviation emissions by 15% overnight. Single European skies. They have been arguing about it at the Commission level for at least the last 10 to 15 years with no progress. So until the EU can make the lowest hanging fruit, they cannot come to the table with clean hands.
Yeah. Wait 1 second, Richard. First of all, on single European skies, we just passed the Single European Skies 2+, which is a good move. It's a good step. It's not enough. And I pledge to work a lot towards this goal because I believe in the Single European Skies, which will save us time, which will save money. And don't forget that today we have very crowded skies and we will have problems if we don't move to the Single European Sky. That's the first thing. But when I say climate change challenges, I don't mean that. I mean in our infrastructure. Look what happened to Valencia. We need to see the issue of sustainable and resilient infrastructure. We need to address the issue of the shortages of the labor, of the jobs that we have, and of the skills gap that we have today. And we also need to tackle the issue of digitalization in the SMEs. Right. These are the issues that we will bring in with our strategy.
When's the strategy going to be published?
Next year. I'm working on it, and we're working on it on that. And it's going to be the first ever strategy on tourism that the EU
in 26.
To answer your question, if I may, I
course.
think governments is taking tourism for a grant, and
Yes.
they believe that everybody will come and visit the countries. France realized recently that tourism is important, and they appointed a minister for tourism economy for the first time ever. In Spain, Minister of Tourism, Industrial and Trade. Big portfolio under one minister. In Saudi Arabia, we are coming late, for the government decided to appoint a minister for tourism, a minister for culture. The best practice globally is culture and tourism together.
What have you done?
What have
You have
I
a
done?
minister for?
Yeah, we have a Minister for Tourism and Environment together, so it's in the same institution. And so we don't have to see big fights between two different
No, but
entities.
the minister's how do you prevent the minister from becoming overwhelmed? And then I need to finish.
How do I prevent the minister from becoming overwhelmed?
Yes.
If the minister is overwhelmed, I fire him. There is always a new one waiting to come.
Okay. Let me
and
ask you
promising
this.
to not be overwhelmed.
All right. So let me ask you. Let me ask you, sir. Last question. Then we'll.
Simple.
How do you ensure that you do not use the tourism portfolio as a place for a never has been, never will be, or somewhere to put somebody you want to get rid of?
What do you mean? Tourism for us is the new thing and is an industry that we're building, and we are seeing finally incredible developments in all the way.
Right.
From the opening up of our mountains to tourists that want to climb, to proposals like Jared Kushner and the family in developing the island.
Careful.
To
Right.
the one of the biggest Middle East companies
Yeah.
developing touristic port and so on and so further. So
Yeah.
there is no chance that we undermine tourism. On the contrary,
Sir, I need to-
tourism is our main horse for the battle. You
Great.
need, but I need too, Richard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Albania is really increasing lots of efforts. But we work with global governments to promote tourism. The country really stands out is Saudi. Every year it's a
Right.
new country. And then the other country does very well is Singapore, Australia, New Zealand.
They're the biggest.
Which, by the way, Richard, I want to tell you that the European Union and I will
So,
personally be involved in working not only within the European Union, but also across the globe with destinations and countries like Saudi Arabia, who has done an amazing job there.
I need to ask you one last
and
question.
the minister has done an outstanding work.
I agree.
These people are very useful to us, and we will work. We will open Europe to the other markets, and we will work together to see how we can exchange in our beneficial, in a beneficial way for both of us.
One place you want to visit in the next 12 months. You're not allowed to choose your own country.
By no doubt, Saudi Arabia.
You're not allowed to choose your own country.
Albania.
Sorry?
Albania.
Oh, this is... This is sad, sad. Come on, rescue me.
But look,
I know.
in all charts, no, look,
Yes.
in all charts published by, not by us or them, you see the top countries in developing tourism is hand-to-hand, Saudi Arabia, Albania, and Qatar. But we didn't have the World Cup, nor us and even them.
Sir.
Saudi Arabia, I want to visit to see the success story they have done there.
Thank you.
So I'm going to be more complicated. I've been twice in Albania, last summer and 5 years ago. Amazing change. Congratulations. I was in Saudi Arabia last year, again this year. Amazing change. I visit Greece every year, twice at
And
least.
we have a new airport, so please.
Oh, please, just answer the question.
Amazing place.
Where do you want to go?
Greece.
There you go.
I have been everywhere
I
this year.
sense he's closing a deal in Greece.
So do I. So
For all of us, open the skies.
More specifically, northern Greece.
Oh, quiet, please.
I just visited all these countries
no.
mentioned, but the country I want to visit next is Rwanda.
Oh, the gorillas.
Yeah, the gorillas.
$1,200 to go and see.
And also
All
how
right.
the country reformed
And you,
itself.
Richard?
Where do I want to go?
In fact,
Yeah, that's it.
I want to go home. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, our panel.
thank you.